We had an agency do Facebook and Instagram ads for us last year that burned $70,000 and got 0 customers.
Well,
yeah, that's not something I'm proud of.
The important thing to understand about the Zuckerberg casino is you acquire data when you lose money that I always compare it to this. This is how I describe it to people because this is how it feels. Have you ever seen the show Lost or like Survivor or something like that?
I've seen Survivor, yeah.
There's when you get onto the island for the first time, they just straight up like throw you onto the shore of some island, you know? And here you are officially standing here like, all right, what the fuck do I do now? Imagine you wash up on this island and you know specifically that there's treasure somewhere on it, but there's this treacherous journey in between you and the treasure. And you are afforded when you very first land on this island one simple clue. And this is clue number 1 that you get. And in this example, when you first start spending, I'm gonna be even more particular with you, Philip, just so I can contextualize this for like your exact situation. If you specifically or your co-founder would have been educated on what best practices in terms of funnels right now work for people trying to scale up big, you would never have let the agency run a application call funnel without a VSL on it, right? If you would have found somebody like me at that specific time, just on YouTube alone without even spending $1 with me, you would have learned about things like my back-end selling systems. You would have learned about VSL best practices. You would have learned about like not having an opt-in on a VSL call funnel and just driving traffic straight to the VSL in the application. You would have learned all these things and you would have afforded yourself to turn that $70,000 into more money, right? Treat it like this first clue as an example. How soon into spending the $70,000 did you realize this shit sucks and is highly probable to not work?
Oh, first $6 grand.
Okay, so watch this, right? So this, in this example, would be the equivalent of the $6,000 being spent. So right here, you lost 6K. That afforded you your first clue.
And then we ignored them.
Okay, and that's exactly right, yeah? So then the next logical thing to do is to go where the first clue tells you to go and to action that, to find the second clue, etc., until you eventually get to the treasure. And to be fair, some people's journeys I described, you might have like 40 clues in between where you start versus when you finally get to the point where it's profitable and making money and it's a money printer at that point. Some people have it real easy and they just have like 3 clues. To be very direct with you, here's some examples to really consider so you can go back and test that successfully, because a lot of people, it's this concept called company narrative, okay? Whenever we work with somebody as a marketing agency, I usually describe it as half my job, like 50% of my responsibility is generating the results. The other 50% is managing client narrative. That's how important I place the narrative of what a business describes as happening to them to truly be, because it's where we make our decisions from. So as an example, this $70,000 that you've historically burned, if you ever watch this back and you see your reactions every time that you talk about spending the money on that platform or that platform period, you're even starting to smirk right now. It's like you have a reaction and that reaction comes from the context of your story that you've experienced. Well, many other people that sit here and watch this exact same video at the exact same time, they don't laugh at Meta. Like, they turn money into more money repeatedly, day in and day out, and they respect the hell out of that platform. Like, I can't even imagine, you know how some people get like celebrity starstruck when they see like an actual celebrity? Dude, if I saw like Zuckerberg, or if I got like a signature from, I would have Zuckerberg like sign my forehead how much I respect Zuckerberg, bro. Like, it's insane the amount of money I made on that platform. Versus in your specific client narrative, your specific story, you hate them and you'd never realistically go back there and confidently spend money again. When in reality, in that first 6K, the screamingly obvious clue to you should have been, the people that are coming through this are unqualified, which means you have a messaging problem, by the way. That would be where that leads you to next. Or if you have people that are showing up and they're technically qualified, but they're just not urgent or they're not willing to buy, it's like, that could reveal that you may have a sales issue. That could reveal you may need to warm them up with some back-end selling systems. There's all kinds of things that specifically come next. You spent 70K and it sounds like you didn't do anything to improve it. You just stood right there. And so instead of spend, it's like, have you ever played a video game and there's like a toxic gas and you see the little HP, like -1 HP, -1 HP.
Yeah, you just let it happen.
Bro, you just stood right here.
Yeah,
you just stood right here and it was like -10K, -5K, -1K, you know? And like every day until all of a sudden it was, you know, -70K.
Oh, no, I mean...
You see what I mean?
I take 100% responsibility for what I did, because I think one of the issues my co-founder and I have had around marketing is like, sometimes you have to just do the thing, and it is way easier to not take responsibility for the thing and be like, oh, I'm just gonna let them try. And even if you are failing, it is easier to just be like, oh, I'm gonna let them do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just took us way too long to get our act together to start trying to do the thing, which is like actually spend money on marketing starting last month.
One of the reasons my Jeremy's Inner Circle offer is as successful as it is, and we see the level of business owner joining into it that we do, is that type of business owner, just like yourself, has been fucked by that exact scenario you just described. It took not only one agency relationship that failed. They realistically have went through like 4 to 5 agencies. Maybe they've even tried to go as far as hiring somebody in-house, and that's failed. And not only have they tried to hire 4 to 5 different agencies, they tried to hire people that pitched them. They tried to hire people that came from referral. They tried to hire people that they met at events that seemed promising. And like, no matter who it is or how impressive they came off, it just perpetually failed. Because the number one thing you have to remember is nobody gives as much of a fuck about your business as you ever will. And the illusion about marketing specifically with something like Meta and Instagram is that it's going to take far more time and effort than you actually think it is. It's actually a pretty low effort thing, believe it or not. It is arguably one of the highest dollar value per hour skills that you could ever master yourself. And to be quite direct with you, it is not time and effort intensive to master, because as I mentioned, as soon as you start the process, that's you washing up on the island and you are afforded a first clue. Within your case, realistically, it didn't even take $6,000. Realistically, it was somewhere below that number where you were afforded your first clue. And then with the right information or the right community that you're a part of, like my Jeremy's Inner Circle group, people just go in there and they ask, or they ask me specifically, or they ask the group and they just say, hey, like, this is what I just got as my clue. Like, what do I do? And there's, in this case, like weekly group calls, people that can just answer the question in real time, Jeremy AI, people at this, like next weekend, we have a mastermind here in this facility. We have eight new people that are getting $1 million a month trophy for the first time that hit it between April and July. That's 8 new people out of a group that has less than 250 people in it that for the first time hit $1 million a month in under a quarter. Okay? Now listen to the words I'm saying. All those people, they've showed up to those historical masterminds and sat in the room, and they've heard the stories of like what somebody did, and you'll hear it yourself. Like you'll hear it yourself where somebody says exactly what you're talking about, where all they had to do was switch the funnel, or all they had to do was switch the messaging, or maybe it was a pixel conditioning issue for some people, or you just didn't have a VSL, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, fuck, obviously I should have had a VSL, right? And all your problems all of a sudden get solved, and you get to the point where you skip over, a 40 clue journey to just, all right, bam, now you've got a perpetual money printing machine here that ultimately causes you 2 big problems. Just fill the closers calendars and then hire more closers, and then fill the closers calendars and hire more closers. Those are the ultimate 2 problems you deal with when scaling. There's just sub problems underneath those 2 larger problems that come up that relate to messaging, pixel conditioning, funnel selection, sales team issues, creating urgency, creating trust, all these very specific problems that come up. But in reality, again, they're all under those 2 umbrellas of just filling the closers calendars, getting more closers. You understand that process?
Yeah.
I would not demonize that. That's the moral of the story that I'm trying to make very clear to you. I would love for you to actually go back and be very open to the idea when you return home to re-exploring that as a platform, because in that very group I just described to you, I have at least 3 different people in there, Kristen and Mark, who are husband and wife business partners, and what's his name, Ben, and all 3 of them have VA placement offers specifically. But without exaggeration, Philip, yours actually sounds, the way you articulate it with, how do you specifically say it? You don't just call it offshore hiring talent. You essentially demonize VAs, and you articulate it as like a hired talent. How do you say it?
Anyone who's paying less than $3K to an agency is probably, like, we do $2,500 people, but if you're paying less than $3K to an agency, you're not getting a good deal. So we try to really do like actually very, very high level good people.
Makes total sense. So at the end of the day, you have to remember that platform, it puts everything into your control. It's a $1 trillion company for a reason, right? It's very tough for any small business owner, especially, to point their finger at a $1 trillion company that makes damn near all their money on paid advertising, that literally puts people under MRI to scan their brain activity while they're in the news feeds with 90+% accuracy on what the person's thinking, when they hear something, see something, what they're emotionally responding to, when and how they're probable to buy in their journeys. They have 52,000 data points on average per user. And simply put, when you in your narrative as a business demonize, essentially the financial loss, in this case of the $70,000, it acts as a preventative to ever trying it again. When in reality, bro, you need to try it again.
Oh, 100%. Totally agree.